organize, yeah. From the mountain high to the valley low, gotta organize, yeah. From the mountain high to the valley low, gotta organize. No telling on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. No telling on the mountain, gotta let our people know. One more time. From the mountain high to the valley low, gotta organize, yeah. From the mountain high to the valley low, gotta organize, yeah. From the mountain high to the valley low, gotta organize, yeah. From the mountain high to the valley low, gotta organize. So go telling on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go telling on the mountain, gotta let our people know. Gotta let our people know. Gotta let our people know.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our service tonight. My name is Shali Gupta Barnes. I'm here from the Cairo Center, and this is our first service after Advent. So we are now in the season of what we call a birth of a movement, a sacred time of remembering, organizing, and imagining liberation anew, when we see the signs of something struggling to break through, something struggling to be born amidst the harms and dangers of our world. So these harms we know are many, and I believe these harms are defined by the increasing and escalating polarization of wealth and poverty in our world. According to a new report, the global elite, just a few thousand people, own, so the 1,000th of 1% of the world's population, just a very few number of people, own 3 times as much wealth as the bottom half of humanity, showing us just how deeply unequal we are, both in terms of wealth and resources, but also power, which makes our world also deeply unstable. And so we're ending this year tonight with this service, coming out of the dark weeks, the longest night, but we'll reflect on how these times mirror the experiences of the early Jesus community as they faced down seemingly overwhelming power, the Herods and Caesars who used oppressive state force and violence to keep people hungry and fearful of each other and the world around them. But we must not forget that those same forces of oppression gave rise to something new, a new community forged out of the struggles for freedom that reimagined a society where all of us are free, where love is abundant, where God's creation can, in fact, thrive. And that is the world that we envision and struggle for and organize towards today. Welcome to Freedom Church of the Poor. Before we get started, I will read the mission statement, which we will also share on the screen for those who want to read along at home. The Freedom Church of the Poor is a spiritual and political home for movement leaders. We believe in the fundamental dignity and value of all life, and in a world of abundance where all can thrive. We gather as a community of faith to support and care for each other. We commit to realizing the abundant world God promises by identifying, developing, and uniting leaders who will build a movement to end poverty led by the poor. In this community and through our commitment to the struggle, we also seek to rediscover and share a vision and practice of religion that is rooted in truth, justice, and love. I'd like to welcome Minister Sierra Taylor to read now the season statement for the birth of a movement.
Thanks, Shali. There are moments in every movement that mark the start of a new creation, a new process, a new organization, the birth of a movement. In this season, we celebrate these moments in our collective histories when we see clearly a rebirth towards liberation taking shape. In these times, we retell again and again of freedom stories and the emergence of a moral movement that unites people across difference from the history of the Israelite people and in the Jesus movement. This season continues parallel with the Winter Offensive organizing drive of the National Union of the Homeless.
Thank you, Sierra. And I believe now we have a song from the Songs in the Key of Resistance.
We see our loved ones locked away by borders built on lies, torn from their homes, from children's arms, beneath these cold, cruel skies. From cages, courts, and prison pens, our people still are singing. Unite, unite, we must unite to know our hearts are grieving. From desert roads to prison walls, our hope is still surviving. No cage can steal the songs we sing, our hearts are still arriving. From border towns to city streets, our love is still resisting. So fight, fight, we'll win the fight, with every soul persisting. We pray for love to reach us all. We fight like hell for the living. We cry for comrades lost to life, but not lost for us who are mourning. Fight, fight, to win the fight. Our dead won't have died for nothing. Unite, unite, we'll win the fight. We'll win a world that is loving. We live our lives down and out. In every way we are ailing. Things must change, for we can't go on. But in every way we are failing. So fight, fight, we'll win the fight. Our dead won't have died for nothing. Unite, unite, we'll win the fight. We'll win a world that is loving. We won't give up and we'll double down with demands we won't ask politely. We'll lift us up all who are down and tear down the high and mighty. Fight, fight, we'll win the fight. Our dead won't have died for nothing. Unite, unite, we'll win the fight. We'll win a world that is loving. Unite, unite, we'll win the fight. We'll win a world that is loving.
Thank you. Thank you to SCORE. That is a new song from the Holiday Songs for Collective Action, from the Songs of the Key of Resistance. And just, reflecting on that line, fight, fight, we'll win the fight. We'll win a world that is loving. Indeed, we'll win a world that is loving. I'd like to invite Jan Herman, longtime leader in the Freedom Church of the Poor, to read our scripture for tonight from Matthew 2, verses 13 to 23.
Now, after they had left, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother by night, and went to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I have called my son." When Herod saw, that he had been tricked by the Magi, he was infuriated, and he sent and killed all the children in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had learned from the Magi. Then what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled because they are no more. When Herod died, suddenly appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who were seeking the child's life are dead." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was ruling Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And after being warned in a dream, he went away to the district of Galilee. There he made his home in a town called Nazareth, so that what had been spoken through the prophets might be fulfilled. He will be called a Nazarene.
Thank you, Jan. For our first scriptural reflection on this passage, would like to invite Pastor Jordan Jones, Associate Pastor from Metro Hope Church, Disciples of Christ, here in Harlem, New York. Thank you, Pastor Jones, for joining us.
Thank you. It's such a privilege to be with you and worship with you and be in solidarity with you all tonight. My name is Pastor Jones. I'm an associate pastor in East Harlem. And a dear friend of mine wrote a poem, and she said that, she wants to go where her friends go. And I often find that in spaces with Kairos and the Freedom Church of the Poor, that I look up and I see friends I didn't know would be here. And so I feel like that this evening. So I was asked to offer a spiritual reflection on the scripture, which Jan read. I appreciate you reading that. And I'm a little bit of a movie nerd, a movie buff, and I wanted an excuse to revisit a film by the Italian filmmaker Paolo Pasolini. And he has this film, and it's the Gospel according to Matthew. And the scene that we just read is depicted in just the most masterful way. It depicts the Magi descending down a hillside to greet Mary. And the whole film is in black and white, and the actors are not really actors. They're townsfolk of this small town in Italy. But in the background of this scene, where the Magi are descending to meet and greet Mary, is Sister Odetta Holmes' rendition of "Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child." And it's just a gripping moment where you're hearing this kind of lament, but it's also supposed to be a joyous time. And the Magi take turns kissing the feet of the baby. And in that moment is this confluence of beauty and terror, that the child of joy and light has been birthed into a situation of abject terror and occupation. No sooner do Joseph and Mary give birth to this miracle, that the angel comes and says, "Get up, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt and remain there until I tell you." And so why is that? Why do Joseph and Mary not get to rest after they've done a pretty big thing? It's because King Herod is well versed in prophecy, and he heard that this child might possess the imprint of God. In Latin, we call it the Imago Dei. And so King Herod's very existence is threatened by his very existence is threatened by the existence of this infant. And so he responds as many kings do when faced with the image of God in the other, and he responds with violence and terror and dehumanizing policy. And so the film, and I can't recommend it enough, shows a horde of stone-faced young men up on a hill. Some of them are in uniform, some of them are clad in armor, others are in plain clothes. And they're holding knives and clubs, and they've all been deputized to brutalize the women carrying infants in this town. And in the courage of the women, they defy Herod's orders by fleeing. And in one moment, it's just a very quick frame, but one woman turns to confront one of the soldiers, only to have her child wrested from her arms. This is a reminder that when one member of our community gets targeted, the entire community suffers. And this is what Thomas Merton, the Trappist monk, calls a theology of violence. The theology of violence, Merton writes, must not lose sight of the real problem, which is not the individual with a revolver, but death and even genocide as big business. But this big business of death, Merton writes, is all the more innocent and effective because it involves a long chain of individuals, each of whom can feel themselves absolved from responsibility, and each of whom can perhaps solve their conscience by contributing with a more meticulous efficiency to this part in the massive operation. Merton wrote these words in the early 60s, but I cannot see them being more prescient to this day about how we are all participants in a theology of violence in ways that we may not even know, maybe simply through our tax dollars, the ways that our pension funds are wound up in death-dealing enterprises of war. But the theology of violence is one that is familiar in these moments. Theology of violence separates families. It forcibly relocates and incarcerates people of color. It occupies indigenous land and enforces apartheid. It kidnaps our neighbors. And yes, it commits genocide. It criminalizes homelessness, but fails to build affordable housing. It normalizes addiction to wealth and war, but criminalizes poverty and substance use and mental illness. I want to get back to the scripture because I've been giving a short period of time and Sunday, and I've already given one sermon, and so I said, why not give another? But it's this voices heard in Ramah. The voices heard in Ramah are not a faceless victim. It is not simply the tears of the disinherited, which alone should be convicting to us. But the voice heard in Ramah is a prophetic voice. It's what Baldwin would call a modern day blues voice that gives voice to God's heartbreak and rage. The voice of Ramah refuses to be consoled, because if one of us suffers, then all of us suffer. The voice of Ramah intimately knows what the theologian Walter Brueggemann wrote of the prophetic imagination by saying that there is no freedom of God without the politics of justice and compassion. I'll repeat that. He says, there is no freedom of God without the politics of justice and compassion. There is no politics of justice and compassion without a religion of the freedom of God. Beloveds, there is no need to speak in metaphor this evening. The voices of Ramah and Rachel are crying all around us. Are we willing to hear them? In the midst of this theology of violence, in the Advent story, God says, out of Egypt, I have called my son. And so for our time together, I'd like to put forth a question that I believe the text is asking us to consider. Now that Christ has come, for those who are followers of the Advent story, where is God calling us to go? See, Joseph and Mary, having witnessed the miracle of Jesus and having heard the voice of Ramah, also asked the question, what is required of us? It is required of us to go to Egypt. And so for those of us on this call and those of us who will watch in the future, what is required of us to build a theology of love? To combat the theology of violence. A theology of love, Merton writes, may also conceivably turn out to be a theology of revolution. In any case, it is a theology of resistance. But what does it mean to resist? And I promise I'm beginning to close. But I cannot leave this place without citing my favorite theologian, Emily Towns, who writes in Womanist Ethics and the Cultural Production of Evil. She says, ultimately, somewhere deep inside each of us, we know that the simplest yet the most difficult answer to the challenge of what will we do with the fullness and incompleteness of who we are as we stare down the interior life of the cultural production of evil is to live your faith deeply. What do we do? Towns says is to live your faith deeply. This is not a quest for perfection, but for what we call in Christian ethics, the everydayness of moral acts. The everydayness of moral acts. It is what we do every day that shapes us and where both the fantastic hegemonic imagination and the challenge and hope to dismantle it are found. End quote. It's the everydayness of moral acts that prompted Joseph and Mary to go to Egypt. But for us this evening, the answer could be to get up and go to a foreign land, or it could be to return home, like the Magi. Sometimes God calls us to go out, and sometimes God calls us to come back. God calls some to heal and others to disrupt. God calls some to spend time with the poor in spirit, and others to tend to those who are poor in pocket. A theology of love tends to the hungry in spirit and the hungry for food and shelter. And so as I conclude, no matter where we are sent, we must follow the example of the Magi, seeking the face of God in the most unassuming places. Ashe and amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Jordan, for this reflection and provocation and question of how will we live our faith deeply? What does that everydayness of moral act look like for each of us individually and for us as a community of this Freedom Church and our broader community that we bring to this space? Thank you so much. I think I'd like to bring back Jan Herman, who both, is a longtime leader in the Freedom Church of the Poor, but also as well as the North Carolina Union of the Homeless. Welcome back, Jan.
Thank you, Shally. Thank you very much. Greetings to Freedom Church tonight. I'm grateful that you've invited me to share with you the story of these early months of the North Carolina chapter of the National Union of the Homeless. We have been blessed this Advent and Christmas season by the close partnership of NUH with Freedom Church during our winter offensive, and I'm grateful. A brief reminder, the Homeless Union's winter offensive is a series of synchronized actions and protests that take place from Thanksgiving through Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday in order to highlight the time of year when the poor and homeless experience the most deadly conditions and the highest rates of suicide and death. We work together to fulfill our mission statement, declaring that we commit our lives to ending homelessness and poverty and to work tirelessly for the human right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, for social and economic justice for all. Today's sacred text in the Gospel of Matthew speaks to the heart of our work to expose the alliance with violent power that we see in the festivals of American Christianity in the months of November through January, and in the ways that a homeless family's story is stripped of its truly revolutionary resistance to an empire's domination. We in the South especially understand that we have long been, and still are, in a battle to lift up the revolutionary nature of the stories and teachings in the Bible about Jesus and other leaders, and to defeat the lies being told about a Jesus who establishes power only for wealthy American Christians. So let me briefly review the history of North Carolina Homeless Union. Currently, we have two main organizers, Chris Noblet and myself. Movement leaders made investments in our political education via University of the Poor classes and Poor People's Campaign teachings. We worked together in a project of survival during the pandemic and learned important lessons from that experience. And conversations we had with National Union of the Homeless leaders during Poor People's Campaign actions in Washington, D.C. led us, Chris and me, to dream of an NUH chapter in our so-called progressive city of Durham, North Carolina. So early in 2024, we began learning all we could about the conditions and services homeless people face in our city. We got appointments with lots of nonprofits and city staff to learn what they were and weren't doing, and we started taking flasks of cocoa to the benches outside Durham's downtown library, where homeless people waited for the library to open its doors. We offered cups of cocoa and talked with folks to learn from them how they were surviving, why they were homeless, and what experiences they'd had with the shelter system. We contacted service providers that we learned about from these conversations, listening for anyone trying to uproot the systems which keep our people poor and homeless. We didn't find any, though we found several whose mission statements said that's what they were doing. We learned later that what we were doing is called a landscape assessment, and it's an ongoing project. We also started going to a Monday through Friday breakfast being offered by a local Episcopal church, a hot breakfast, where we could sit and eat with people, hear their stories, and share with them what being part of a homeless union could mean for us all. All the while, we were also learning from homeless union leaders like Kristen Colangelo and Willie Baptist, and being invited to membership assemblies in Pennsylvania and Maryland. Our next step was to start a small project of survival. Chris calls it a raggedy one. We set up a small table every Wednesday. We began by setting up a small table at a free store run by a homeless services nonprofit. And we offered blood pressure checks and water, and we had a storyboard inviting people to respond to a question: how would your life be different if housing and healthcare were human rights? But we got evicted after a couple of months because we were too political. So we took our table to the sidewalk outside the downtown shelter. But after a few months, that turned out not to feel very safe for ourselves and the people we were talking with. And so eventually we came back to that church breakfast. And that's where we are now every Wednesday morning. As we meet people who come to us for blood pressure checks or for water, or who we meet at the tables eating breakfast together, we also invite them to a twice monthly noontime meeting at a downtown church that gives us free space. Those meetings are still small, 6 folks usually, but it's where we deepen our relationships, dig down into the roots of the system that keeps us poor, and study with the Nonviolent Medicaid Army. We are also paying attention to bills moving through our legislature intending to criminalize homelessness, and we intend to speak and protest at committee meetings this spring when they take it up. During this year's winter offensive, we held our first longest night vigil with 15 to 20 folks attending. As Sam Cooke sings, a change is gonna come. We have a lot of dreams for growing our union in 2026. But we also understand that we grow at the speed of trust. And trust is hard for people who've been stomped on for so long. So today's sacred text describing death-dealing empire, we also see daily in our union members. Denial of healthcare and housing is its own kind of massacre. So Samuel injured his leg, and he needs surgery, but the doctor won't operate because he doesn't have a place to recuperate. And homeless services can only offer him a place where his wife won't be allowed to live with him, and yet he needs her help as he heals from the surgery. A catch-22, I guess. Miss Imogene, a retired educator, was camping in a tent at a park, and park officials tore it down and threw away her walker and her medication. A union member is so discouraged by the barriers to getting shelter and that spike his anxiety, so he hides away in a tent. Our union is committed to building the leadership of members like these, and we have also already begun developing leaders in the capital city, Raleigh, and studying via Zoom with the Poor People's Campaign leader in Western North Carolina. As we all know at Freedom Church and in the National Union of the Homeless, you only get what you're organized to take. Thanks.
Thank you, Jan, for sharing all of this about your work in North Carolina, the work of the Union of the Homeless, this organizing drive among the poor, and calling out this death-dealing massacre of poverty in the midst of plenty. It is very much what this season, this birth of a movement is all about. I'd like to invite Mike Ishii, friend and founder and director of Suru for Solidarity, an organization founded by descendants of Japanese American and Japanese Latin American survivors of the internment camps from World War II. which is today working to end immigrant detention and directly supporting immigrant and refugee communities targeted by inhumane policies and structural violence. SUDU is one of the anchor organizations of the National Coalition to End Family and Child Detention. Never Again is now. Thank you, Mike, for joining us.
Thank you, Shally. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. I'm joining you from upstate New York in Hudson Valley this evening. We have passed the darkest nights of the year, and now the days get longer, and the light grows brighter. And I want to tell a story. 83 years ago in upstate New York, a white vigilante gunman entered a Japanese American home. And he said, "I'm going to solve the Jap problem today." And he opened fire on them. And he shot the father and killed him. He shot the mother and her mother-in-law and left them for dead. And their mentally disabled son fled into the woods, where he would be found many hours later by the neighbors who went in search of him. And the reason I tell you this story is because in rereading Matthew 2:13, I thought about the angel of mercy who came to Mary and Joseph. And I thought, why did that angel not come to my family? Why did that angel not warn my family to flee? Why did that angel not protect the holy child of my family? And I think a lot of people are asking that question right now across this country as they're being hunted, as children are being strip searched because it's legal now, because they just passed a law that they could do it inside of detention sites, that there's no accountability to ICE agents who are sexually abusing children inside these dark places right now, where families are being separated, where the rule of law is no longer existent, where due process no longer exists, and where we replicate the pattern of family separation in this country from the auction blocks of the slave trade that broke up African families kidnapped from their homeland, that separated indigenous families and sent children into boarding schools where they would be abused and murdered, that separated Japanese American families through FBI raids, where they came into our homes and took all of the male leaders away and broke up our families, often for many years, and where they incarcerated over 125,000 of my people, half of them children. And my mother and her two sisters were amongst those 125,000. So in the darkest night of the year, on Christmas Eve, that's when that gunman shot my family. I often find myself asking the question, why did the angel not come to protect us? But I've learned something in reflecting about it, which is that the angel did come, actually. Because when I was a young teenage boy, Kay, my Aunt Katie, who was the mother in that scenario, she survived the gunman. And so did her mother-in-law. And so did their son Yoni, who fled into the woods, and his brother, who was at school that day. And Kay came after many decades in the 1980s to come live with my grandmother in Seattle. And that's when I met her. And she told me the story of what happened. And she also told me that that man never served a day in jail. They could never find a jury for him because there was so much racism that they could not serve a jury there. But she said it didn't matter, because as he had shot her through the neck, and as he had walked away and left them for dead, she uttered in the best way she still could, "I forgive you." She offered him the humanity that he had tried to take from her. And so I realized that the angel of mercy came to me as a young teenager, and her name was Kei Ianaga. She came as a messenger to say that nonviolence is the transformative force of the universe, that hate begets hate, but love always seeds an open future. Love brings light, love brings possibility, and love brings transformation. These are the principles that Suda for Solidarity has operated on in our 6.5 years since the first Trump administration and the zero tolerance policy, when they stole children, ripped them from the arms of their parents, deported the parents, caged the children, and abused them. We have understood Kay's message, which is that love wins. Love is the only way to win in this time. We can't win with hate. We can only win with love and transformation. And that the change comes from inside. It's the internal tools, it's the internal transformation. And so that's why we joined with Kairos and our other national partners, because we all understand that this is the way we will win back this country. It's not by hating, it's not by seeing people who we don't agree with as our enemies. It's actually by going to get our people, to get our neighbors. And that's why the Free Families campaign is so important, because it understands that in a time when they have done away with the rule of law, when they're terrorizing people and again taking people from their homes, their workplaces, just like they did to my people, just like they did to my family, that we have to come together in this time. And this time we must break the cycle of violence. And we can come together. So in spite of an $187 billion bill to expand ICE, we'll stop them, because communities of faith and resilience are coming together through the Free Families campaign to say that we reclaim family values. We reclaim the protection and care of families. We understand and we reclaim the uplifting of the sanctity of children, who are the sacred trust. And we call in our neighbors, we call in our families, we call in our communities to stand with us in solidarity, in protection of families and children across the country. The people who are supporting the violence right now are also from families that are in tremendous pain right now and have been manipulated deeply, I believe, often around economic issues. When this all settles, when this is done, they will still be in pain, and they will still need love and care from us, from everyone, so that we can all come together to forge a new future together, a future that opens for everybody this time. And that's why Free Families is so important. I am so, I'm feeling gratitude in this moment, even in the darkest time of the year, in one of the, perhaps the darkest year I've experienced in my long life. I see a sense of possibility. Just last week, members of the Free Families Coalition sponsored the very first cohort, leadership cohort academy for young survivors of detention. And their co-partners were young teens from West Virginia, Appalachia, who have suffered the ravages of the opioid epidemic and incredible poverty of a region that has been economically disregarded and left behind and disrespected. And so children of families that have been detained and children of families that have been ravaged by classism and the opioid epidemic coming together to make common cause, to support each other. And that's the work of this moment. And that's the light that leads us forward. So in this time, there's incredible reason to have faith. There's incredible reason to hold hope. And there's incredible reason to come together, to mobilize, to organize, and to remember that we must look for signs of the sacred within everything. Blessings to you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for everything that you shared about your history, your Aunt Kay, the angels in our midst, whether we know them, whether we see them or not, whether they are in immigrant families or other families, these young teens from West Virginia, everywhere where people are holding light and hope and promise, there is the possibility that we will win a world that is loving. Thank you. I'd like to invite Reverend Dr. Liz Theoharis, Director of the Kairos Center, to offer our prayers for the people tonight.
Thank you, Shali, and thank you to everyone that's been sharing this evening. Really powerful and moving. Just a couple days after Christmas. I would ask that folks start putting names of folks that you want us to be praying for in the chat. And for anyone that's following online, remember that we do go back and read the chat to make sure we can pray for them as well. But just thinking about this real Christmas story, this not sweet or calm story, but a Christmas story that's closer to these nativities with Jesus with zip ties and family members being tracked and followed by Herod. I wanted to share a prayer from our brother Moses, who shared this prayer with us, and we pray freedom. The book that the Kairos Center put out earlier this year, and it's a prayer for those that have gone before and that we're remembering, because too many people have passed away because of being pawns in a system of empire, like what is described in this passage. So Heavenly Spirit, we ask you right now to hear our tears and to hear our pain. We ask you to hear the cry of people for a better life, for a better system, and for better care for each other. We ask you to hear our wailing as we call the names of those who have died far too soon. We also ask that you present yourself in each and every one of us in these times when we name those who have left, in times when we are hurting because those we love the most are gone from this world too soon. Remind us that you are always with us. Remind us that you are always by our side and that every single one of us is cared for and loved and valued, despite a system that might tell us otherwise. We ask you to be in each and every one of us, that we may show every other person, a single person around us, that they are cared for, loved, and valued. Part of what we do on this earth is fight for a system to know that we are all loved. Help us to have faith. Help us to have hope that these things are possible. Help us to see through these times of legitimate pain and crisis and suffering and know that there is another way and we have each other. We have each other's love and support and solidarity. And today we ask a special prayer, a prayer for LaShawn's mother who just had a stroke, a prayer for Pastor Julius Carroll, A prayer for Lisa's friend Diane with health issues. A prayer for Laura and Connor, who are traveling to Palestine this week. A prayer for my family, who is getting violent, from Anne. A prayer for Thelani Herman, for Rocky, and for our brother Tani. We have a special prayer for 3 children who froze to death in Gaza, and prayers for all the children across the world who live under violent conditions. Thanksgiving for the sacred tears that were shared with us today will stay in Cynthia's heart forever. We have a prayer for Slava Ukraini, a prayer for friends in physical pain, including Clive and Marianne and Susie, a prayer for Mike and Beth Eddie, Lev's cousin, Alexander in Odessa, and prayers for so many others, said and unsaid, lifted up and here in our hearts. Let each of us feel loved and cared for. Let everybody know that we will carry on anyone's legacy and will fight with them for revolution and will fight for a just system. May every single name we've named, wherever they are right now, feel yourself in a big hug of solidarity with each other, and so that we can connect and know that we're loved by everyone here. Thank you to my brother Moses for writing so much of that prayer. Thank you for sharing your prayers, and in the many names of holiness and sacredness and the ending of empire, I say amen.
Amen, and may it be so. Thank you, Reverend Liz. We have, as we are heading into the last few minutes of our service, wanted to share several calls to action from our partners and broader Freedom Church community. The Salinas Union of the Homeless is celebrating its 10-year anniversary, 10 years of fighting for justice, dignity, and housing for all, with the voices of unhoused people at the forefront. They are having a community celebration with live music, speakers, peer-led conversations, delicious food, and art, history, and that spirit of resilience that makes this movement unstoppable. The celebration is, sorry, I'm just pulling up the information. The celebration is in the middle of January, on January, where can I see it? I'm missing the date. Anyway, we will share information about when and where this will happen, but this is a moment to honor the Salinas Union of the Homeless's roots, uplift their voices, and build momentum for another decade of change until everyone is housed, and housing is a human right. We also have from the Free Families community an invitation to build with the National Coalition to End Family and Child Detention, as well as from the Cairo Center for Religions, Rights, and Social Justice. Free Families is a rallying cry of our commitment to the beloved community we deserve, beginning with a simple and straightforward message that the use of family and child detention is wrong, inhumane, and must come to an end. Mike, I wonder if you wanted to come back on video just to share some information about a special featuring some Free Families work with Rachel Meadow.
Thank you, Shally. Just want to let everyone here know that Rachel Maddow has produced a new podcast called The Burn Order. It features co-founder of Student for Solidarity, Dr. Satsuki Ina, who is a survivor of the U.S. concentration camps, but who has been a tireless advocate of children who have been detained, as well as leading healing justice work for survivors. In fact, she helped lead the Healing Circle's work in the youth cohort that we just piloted last week in Florida with West Virginia and Miami young people. She is featured in the podcast. It's a 6-part series. And Rachel actually filmed a live event with all of the participants of her podcast, and it's dropping tonight on MS Now, if you have a chance to check that out nationally. And they'll be talking about the Free Families campaign amongst our other work to end detention. Thank you.
It's amazing. Thank you, Mike. And returning to the Salinas Homeless Union 10-year anniversary, that will take place on Saturday, January 17th at the National Steinbeck Center in Salinas, California. Make sure everyone has that information. We also have the Free Louis fundraiser for Louis Valadares, who on November 20th of this year was traveling domestically with his partner and child through the Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport when he was apprehended by ICE and HSI agents before reaching TSA. He was not even trying to cross a border. He was just traveling within the United States, the only home he has ever known. Luis is the partner and leader of Donkey Saddle Projects, a partner to Freedom Church and the Cairo Center, and we are asking if you're able to support him and his family to please consider offering any support that you can. We keep us safe. We also have the Twin Cities, as we know, in Minnesota, entering another week of occupation and being terrorized by ICE agents. We're infuriated that hundreds of neighbors have been detained unjustly and without cause, including that many immigrant families are scared to leave their homes or send their children to school because of this threat. They have lost income because it is not safe for them to go to work, especially Somali and Latina families. So there are those there who are raising as much money in mutual support for rental assistance so people are not evicted as we enter into the new year on January 1st. If you are moved to donate and support immigrant families in the Twin Cities, this is one way to do so, and we will share that link in the chat. If you haven't already done so, please check out the piece that Pastor Jones, who offered our first reflection this evening, co-wrote alongside Elam Tamaklo and Sojourners about holy resistance. We will offer that in the chat as well. And as always, there's also in February, which I'm sure we'll hear about again, the 11th annual Sacred March and Run for Oak Flat, the sacred lands of the Apache stronghold, who have been fighting to save these lands from the imminent destruction to the military and to the military and copper mining industries. Everyone is welcome to join the run and prayer in February 5th at 8 p.m. In the new year. And as always, please sign up for the Freedom Church community, and you can we have Bible studies every Wednesday as well as services on Sunday. We'll share that link in the chat, share those links in the chat. And I think that wraps our calls for action for this week. So I will invite Minister Sierra Taylor to join us now for our final song and benediction.
Thanks, Shally, and thank you to everyone who has joined tonight and has shared tonight. As always, I feel like I was going back and forth about which song to use to close us out, and there was just something in the story that Mike Ishii told about the way that many of us have come to unite across lines of difference, with these different experiences of tragedy and heartache, but also resistance and love coming together in that to make sure that all of us can be free from oppression and state violence and just really appreciating that solidarity. And so wanting to share this song before we get to the benediction this evening. It's called Never Again Para Nadie, and it was written by Emmett Ezel in 2019. There was a collective action, a big Never Again action with Jewish organizers and Kosecha members. They had a march in the summer of 2019 against ICE detention center that was kidnapping families and children in the Boston area. And so these two groups came together, and what they thought would be maybe a march with a couple hundred folks turned into this massive march with thousands of people. And so wanted to share this song before we close out this evening. And this song can be found in the Free Families Toolkit. There's a whole selection of songs that folks can use. Free Families, as our dear brother Luaya likes to remind us, is more of an invitation to build community, to be a part of community, to sustain community, keep us safe, than simply a coalition, asking us to take action with each other through song, through prayer, through liturgy. And so really appreciating that and wanting us to be in that sort of mindset when we sing this together. I know you're on mute, but if you feel moved. So the song goes, we've got ancestors at our backs, and we've got generations forward. We've got land and spirit in our bones, never again. Pardon Adie, never again. Pardon Adie. We've got ancestors at our backs. We've got generations forward. We've got land and spirit in our bones, never again. Pardon Adie, never again. Pardon Adie. One more time. We've got ancestors at our backs. We've got generations forward. We've got land and spirit in our bones, never again. Pardon Adie, never again. Pardon Adie, never again. Free Palestine. Cool. Take that home with you. I love that song. And so to close out, we actually wanted to do this together. This is a community liturgy that is also in this Free Families Toolkit. It's called the Free Families Promise. And so we're going to be a little chaotic and messy, but also beautiful and together. And we're going to ask you to come off mute and to help. I'm going to say the part that's just regular thought. And then for everyone on the call, you can respond with the part that's bolded. So for an example, let's try this. We are alive.
We were
made
for these times.
Y'all are so great. Okay, let's keep that going. I'll start again. We are alive.
We were made for these times.
We are the people.
All of us are powerful.
All of us equal.
We are community.
When some attempt to division, we build unity.
We are compassion.
When our people are in need, we take action.
We are the movement.
For every single human.
We have come to love.
We have come to win.
We have come to heal.
We have come to sing.
No, that's right. We are the song.
Where we all belong for these times.
We are the ocean.
Falling, rising as one.
We are the sky.
Our eyes shining in the sun.
We are the land.
Abundant for everyone.
Because liberation.
Is the destiny of creation.
We are a promise of protection.
For dignity.
For justice.
For peace.
For all our families.
to be
free.
free,
for today, for tomorrow.
forever
Ever
after,
We are living our commitment
to all
all
our
our
children's
children's
laughter.
laughter.
Woo-hoo.
Thank
Oh, thank you, Sierra.
you
Yes,
all.
thank you,
Love you
everyone.
all.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.